Hey everybody, it's David Pingree out here today for our Dialed In on the 2020 KTM 450 SXF. We did an introduction on this bike already, kind of told you what was new, what they changed. And so today was all about getting this thing really focused in, working it the best we could. We tried to pick the brains of the KTM guys and race team guys and get what we could. Honestly, not a whole lot of feedback coming from them yet. It's really early, but I'll take you through what we learned today. And we'll start with the engine. Again, really good gearing on this bike. They did a great job coming through with that, so I wouldn't recommend any changes there. Tire pressure 12 and 13 on these Dunlops. As far as the maps, and this is your big range of adjustability here, map 1 and map 2. And the first map is standard, second map they call aggressive. I don't know if that's a great way to describe that second map. It's a little bit racier, a little bit more responsive, maybe a little bit more power pulling through the middle, but I don't know if it's more aggressive. It's just moved in a different place. So I would say you need to go back and forth on your own and figure out what you liked. So I went through each map, and I kind of liked map 1 a little bit better. Just out here today, it was a lot of hard slick chop and soft berms and sticky ruts onto hard pack slick. So it was unpredictable, and so for me that first map was just a little more usable and rideable. The second map, just because it does accelerate a little bit quicker in spots, I find myself just making more mistakes with it. So then I went back and went through traction control on both maps again, and on map 1 I almost felt like it took a little bit too much off of it. So then I went to map 2, and that was actually where I probably preferred it. If this track got really dry and slick and beat up at the end of the day, I'd probably go back to map 1 with the traction control. But I would say start of the day, and as it's working through the middle of the day here, map 2 with traction control on was my best bet. It was enough power and aggressive enough. I could still ride it hard. There was always plenty of motor, but it would give me that little bit of assistance if I stepped out and needed it. You could feel it helping. So again, this is something that's very track dependent. It's very dependent on the way you ride, but you've got to go through that process, going through each map, then going through them again with traction control and seeing what you like, understanding how they work, so that when you get to a track, you can make the correct choice. Because really that's what it is all right, for this type of track, it's really sticky. I want map 2, no traction control. Or it's hard slick or wet slick. Let's go map 1 with the traction control on, or whatever. You got to figure it out. But that was it. I ran through all of them, and like I said, there's something for everybody there. Couple of little things I noticed. The seat's real soft again. They kind of went through a phase years back where it got really soft, and on bumps you'd go through and hit the plastic pan. I found myself doing that again today. They had fixed it years back, and it happened a few times today. Maybe looking at an aftermarket seat is something to think about if you're really getting aggressive racing these. The other big component here is handling and setup. With the throttle, they have a different cam that is a shorter throw. It's optional on the 350 and 450. It comes with the long throw. I recommend getting the black one, the black cam that'll come with a new grip set that you buy from KTM. And it just shortens that throw from closed to open. For me, I don't have to rotate it as far, so I get less arm pump, easier to modulate throttle. It's just easier for me. So check that out if that's something you think you might like. As far as suspension goes, they have a pretty good starting point with the 10.5 bar that they recommend. The clicker's at 12 and 15 and 12 in the back. So I didn't make too many big changes. 105 millimeters of sag on the shock. And we ended up going 2 clicks softer front and rear. So I left the dial where it's at, standard position, 2 turns out, just went 2 clicks out on the back to soften it up just a touch. And was able to get the 105 sag number, no problem. All my static sag numbers were good, so I'm at 170. Kind of looks like they've almost come down on spring rate, or at least it's adjusting better for me today. It used to be you had to be closer to 200 to really get these right, but it seems like we were able to get it. And then on the fork, I went from 10.5 to 10.7 bar. And again, I always talk about the balance on these. I'm not saying that'll be the right number for everybody, but you need to find what your right number is. And I think 10.5 is a little bit soft. Unless you're very light, I would say you're gonna need to go up to at least 10.7, 10.9. That's a couple fork spring rates, but you need to play with it and try, because once I got the front end up and get it balanced, all of a sudden I got way more stability in the front end. It doesn't want to push or tuck. And when it's soft, you're going to feel that. You will not like the feel of this front end. So I think if you're having that feeling like the front end's really nervous, wanting to get out from underneath you, keep bumping up, even if it's 0.1 bar each time, a half a spring rate until you find that sweet spot. But that's really important. And all I did here is open up the compression clicker 2, and I was really comfortable with it. Depending on the track, you may want to slow down or speed up this rebound. It's pretty sensitive though, so even a click you'll feel, but I wouldn't go more than 2. But you can tell the difference if you slow it down or speed it up based on, is it real jumpy and sharp faces, or is it really high speed with little chatter, because they're going to require different things. As far as fork height goes, this comes on the second line down, and I was really comfortable here. I think if you were running maybe GP's really high speed stuff, you could drop it down a line, a couple mils, but the standard setting here at the second line is actually really effective. Again, I'll recommend using these rubber O-rings that are on the fork. It gives you a good idea of where your fork's at in terms of spring rate or air pressure. If you're pushing those things to the bottom every time you ride, you're probably too soft. So slide those up before you go out and do a few hard laps, come in and look, or just glance down and look. That's a really good indicator. You want to use most of the travel, but if you're out on a track that doesn't have a lot of big jumps or G-outs and you're pushing it all the way to the bottom, good indicator you're too stiff. And vice versa, if you're only using 3/4 of the stroke, maybe you need to soften it up a bit with air pressure or with clickers. Those are my big changes or recommendations that I'd make on this bike. It's really impressive out of the box. The brakes are unreal. I would tell you the best brakes in the 450 class, hands down. Coming down the big hills here today, you can come in with a head of steam and this thing will get you stopped quick. So no need for adjustment there. Those things are great. And the clutch is good. All the little components and pieces on here, just awesome right out of the box. So great job to KTM for putting together an awesome bike. I think those couple of things will get you headed in the right direction with setting. Enjoy your 2020 KTM 450. We'll see you on the next Dialed In.